Welcome to the Dawn Foods Innovation Studio. My name is Melissa Trimmer, and I'm the corporate pastry chef here.
I'm John Drozd. I'm a technical service rep based out of the Midwest.
So today we're going to be talking about high ratio cake mix. And what high ratio cake mix means is it's a cake mix that has a higher percentage of sugar to flour by weight. And high ratio cakes need to kind of have a certain amount of attributes to work really well in your bake shop. So when we look at any baked good, this top little corner here is a shoulder, down here is the foot. What we are looking for on a cake is a nice, even, high shoulder with a defined edge. We look to have not much doming on the top, a nice straight, even top to that cake so I can use the entirety of it. And if I take a look at the internal crumb, I want to see a nice, even, tight internal crumb that is moist with no tunneling and of course tastes delicious. Now, in a perfect world, all my cakes always turn out like this and I can use every single one of them. However, life isn't perfect and sometimes things happen in a shop. So what happens when cakes dome?
We're creating waste. There's a lot of waste when we get a dome.
Sure.
So we have to take time to cut it off, and that just goes in the garbage.
So John, can I see another cake mix?
This is another cake mix that we have.
All right, so if we take a look at it next to the Dawn, my shoulders are lower, so the doming's a little bit higher. I've got cracking. So in order to make this usable, I'm gonna have to trim this belly. What happens when I trim bellies, my friend?
You are creating waste. You're also getting inconsistency of level.
These cakes here have the same deposit as my Dawn Baker's request. So that is my 8-inch cake trimmed to the shoulder so that I have 100% edible yield.
When we bake the Dawn cake, we're baking at a much more level top. So there's less time spent leveling off the cake and there is no waste.
Because they had the same deposit, I've got to charge the same price for these cakes.
Yes, all the cakes are weighed out at the same, but we have a lot more waste.
What if my mix is perfect? What other tips and tricks could fix this issue in the shop?
Well, we want to look at temperature of the oven. We want to look at temperature of the batter, and also correct ratios of water and oil mixed in that have been weighed out.
Another common problem we see with high ratio cakes is shrinking, and that means that the cake has pulled way too far from the side of the pan. So, John, what am I looking at here?
Some of the issues that you can get with shrinking are caused by temperature of the oven, as well as overmixing. Overmixing can cause the gluten to tighten up and pull in the cake as it bakes. The baker's request is very consistent as far as the shrinkage that comes out. As far as anybody else that's out there, we don't see a lot of consistency. We can get a lopsided cake or even a bigger dome because of it. The baker's request is formulated to create a large shoulder to give you more volume look to it, even though these are both weighed out at the same batter weight. Formulated to shrink so that when we're releasing it from the pan, it can come out and not break apart.
Sure. Okay, so another thing that I feel like we have to mention is that most recipes out there tell us to take cakes out of the oven after they've started pulling away from the sides of the pan. And that's a really common mistake. By the time a cake is pulling away from the side of the pan, if it's still in the oven, it's already overdone. So the way to tell that your cake is done correctly is to tap the top of your cake. When you tap it, if it springs back nicely, it's done. After you remove the cake from the oven and put it on the cooling rack, that's when we should see it starting to pull away from the sides of the pan a little bit. So we see that here, and that's exactly what we want. To John's point, it's got to pull away just a touch so that we can unmold it easily. What we don't want to see is pulling away so much that we lose volume. And once we lose volume, there's all sorts of issues. It doesn't look like it's the size it's supposed to be. We might have to use more fillings or more icings to cover it up, and it's just not ideal. The next problem that may happen with your high ratio cakes is you may have something called tunneling. When I cut it and open it up, I absolutely see evidence of tunneling. It's these big, kind of unpleasant holes throughout the structure of my cake.
Well, if we have tunneling through a cake, we can wind up with a cake staling much quicker because of the air that's flowing into the cake. Also, you're going to have open holes as you slice into it, and you will have voids that will be not very pleasant.
I'm going to take a look at this cake next to it. So the cake next to it, this is a Dawn Baker's request. We see that we don't have tunneling here. Now, Baker's request has been formulated to always have consistent protein levels from year to year to prevent things like tunneling. Now, tunneling can be caused by a couple of different things. Don't overmix a cake. If we think we've overdeveloped the gluten and we get tunnels, it's just not something that we want to do. Then we need to train our staff correctly. If we've mixed that cake correctly and we're still getting tunneling, another way to fix that is to take and draw a paring knife through your cake batter prior to putting it in the oven, wrap it on the counter a couple of times, and toss it in. This will also fix tunneling as long as you haven't overmixed it and it's not the mix. Thank you for joining us today while we talked about the possible issues that could arise while using high ratio cake mix. We hope you found this helpful. Now, if you're out there and you're thinking, geez, some of these things are happening in my bake shop, don't worry, we've got folks to help.
Just get in touch with your Dawn sales rep, and they'll be able to make arrangements with our technical team to have somebody come out and help you.
That's a great part about Dawn. We don't just sell baked goods, we are bakers.